If I'm crying, then you should be crying. Does that make any sense to you? Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of The Game Changer here on Spreaker.com. I am Nate the Effing Great. Victory Bell has the week off. You know, when it comes to movies, they do a lot of things for us. They bring us joy, they bring us happiness, they have these feel-good moments, they can make us really fantasize what we want in life. And yes, I know a lot of people I'm talking about the romantic comedies. Or just chick flicks, whatever you want. They give us the right amount of action, guy flicks, of course. But there are a lot of movies that also make you feel emotions. Especially an emotion where you have no choice but to give in to the sadness part of your emotion, where you can't help but just let the floodgates open and tears just swell out of your eyes like two waterfalls. Yes, I have indeed done that, and I'm very proud to say that because I can admit that I am human and that I have my faults. So, for those that are indeed like me, I commend you. For those of you that have not experienced that emotion, you might experience that with this list. So, I'm going to be going through my top 10 most emotional moments in television and movies. So let's just get right into it, guys. Number 10, Marley and Me, the final Marley scene. So a lot of people definitely have gone through the whole entire process of picking out a raising it, training it, making it a that it finally is one of the hardest things to that member of your family. And this is one of those movies that reminds you of that feeling. Near the end, we see Marley, of course, reaching the point where he is just not able to continue anymore. And we see Owen Wilson have a very passionate speech about how he was always a member of the family, no matter how many issues he caused or trouble that he got into. No matter what the case, he was still always a member of the family, and it really definitely swells up the eyes so much when you see Marley going, and just seeing that final deal where his eyes just slowly shut really starts the waterworks. And guys, I would like to also preface this that this list is in no particular order, but my number one is indeed something that I will keep as my number one. So number 9 is Mrs. Doubtfire, the final scene. So obviously a lot of people know about a lot of the great works that Robin Williams has done. He's been in Hook, he's been in Aladdin, and Mrs. Doubtfire by far is indeed one of his best works. A father who wants to stay with his children even though he's being divorced by his wife. He dresses up as a woman to be a part of his kids' lives. And in the end, of course, he gets caught, but he also builds a better connection with his family, which is something that is so very, very dear to a lot of people's hearts. And we reach a point at the end of the movie where things are just starting to get better, and Mrs. Doubtfire has her own TV show. And the final thing that happens in this Mrs. Doubtfire TV show is that she's asked a question about parents that are separated and if they are going to be a whole family again. Are they going to, are they going to stay broken? And Mrs. Doubtfire gives one of the best speeches that talks about how love is something that keeps families together, even though parents can be split. And this definitely hits hard for a lot of people that have experienced divorce, that have experienced parents being separated. And I just remember hearing that phrase that Mrs. Doubtfire talks about, is that just because the parents don't love each other doesn't mean that they don't love you. It's just so heart-wrenching, and it's one of those moments that definitely solidifies Robin Williams' career, because a lot of people definitely look at Robin Williams as, he's the funny guy. He's just always trying to be a goofball and just trying to make everybody laugh. He does do that, but there are these great movies like Jumanji, like Mrs. Doubtfire, in which we see Robin Williams in a different zone. And it's absolutely amazing how great of a serious actor he can be. And now I think a lot of people could definitely put in the scene from Good Will Hunting, where he's talking about dating and relationships and marriage in there. That is definitely a tearjerker on there as well, but I would need to have at least watched the movie to at least appreciate it. So it's on my list, don't worry. Number 8 is actually a twofer. I know it's unfair, but this is my list, and they kind of tie together. It comes from Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, as well as Dead Men Tell No Tales. Why these two, you might ask? Well, throughout the Pirates of the Caribbean series, we of course see the relationship blossom between Elizabeth Swann and William Turner. And at World's End, we see that relationship finally reach the point where they are finally married, but also we see a very heart-wrenching scene where Will gets stabbed by Davy Jones and it looks like he's about to die. And this is actually one of those things that really stands out, because during this scene, William Turner's father, Bootstrap, I believe, he was brainwashed before, but then he sees his son at the point of near death, and that brainwash deal he snaps out of it. And he just has that line where he looks over, his eyes widen, he just says, "William, my son." And of course he goes after Davy Jones. That's just one of those moments that really does get me. But what really does, make this very emotional is, of course, the fact that they put William Turner's heart into the chest. The chest of for the what's one called? Flying Dutchman. That's right. So they put it into the chest, and of course he's basically trapped inside that ship for at least, I think I want to say it was maybe like 20 plus years, because of course this fast forwards to Dead Men Tell No Tales, where they finally break the curse. William Turner is back, and he comes on land, and we see that emotional reunion between Elizabeth and William. And just, I remember watching that, and I did bawl a bit with that, because it was such a beautiful moment. We didn't think that the two of them were going to get back together, but then we just see that moment, and it's just one of those things you had to see to believe. So definitely go check out the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I would probably skip on Stranger Tides, but if you want to, go for it. The only good thing there, in my honest opinion, is probably the mermaids. But anyway, just going from the first 3 movies onto Dead Men Tell No Tales, you definitely do experience that roller coaster that Elizabeth and Will go through, and it's an absolutely amazing roller coaster, and they tell the story very well. So that is indeed something that really does make it on this list. Number 7, 13 Reasons Why. So, when I saw this Netflix series, I kind of knew about it, but I really didn't have a full grasp as to what this was all about until I watched it. And of course, we hear 13 tapes of Hannah, who takes her own life, and she's given 13 reasons why she decided to take her own life. And each tape is heart-wrenching. It's emotional. It's some of the things that you watch and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is just sad to see that this girl had to go through all of these. But it wasn't until the final tape. The final tape where Hannah talks about how she went through everybody and so many people backstabbed her, and she had one last hope, and that hope absolutely crushed her. And I kind of knew where this was going because she stole some razor blades from her parents' little drugstore. So it was one of those things where it's like, no. You were hoping that she wasn't going to do it. And then, of course, we get to that scene. And I'll tell you guys this. During this scene where she's in her tub and she is about ready to take her own life, I actually had to pause. I knew what was coming, but I had to take a minute to just brace for it. And I even contemplated not even watching the rest of that episode because it was so hard to watch. Because I knew what was going to happen next. I knew I wasn't going to like it. But I knew that I don't know what exactly caused me to do it, but I remember pressing the play button, watching this, and again, the tears just streamed down my face, just seeing her, just shivering, and she finally, of course, is gone. It's just one of those stories that really hits home. It really hits hard because of everything and everybody that has to go through that, and to hear and to see, basically what somebody goes through when they reach their last days. It's just they did a great job of storytelling, but at the same time, they just they hurt me so deep down inside. It was definitely one of those series that is very hard to watch, and for those of you that are, faint of heart, I would not recommend it. But this is definitely one of those Netflix series that is worth watching through at least once. And of course, you get to learn about ways that you can help prevent suicide and ways that you can make a difference in someone's life. And that is something that is always very important. So this one definitely deserves a spot on the list. Number 7, Inside Out, Riley's Sadness. So, actually, I do believe that this is actually number 6. Yep, it's number 6. I'm sorry. So, what do I mean by Riley's sadness? Am I saying like sadness throughout the entire movie? No, I'm talking more towards the end. And what I mean by that is basically Riley's trying to run away from home. Sadness comes back. She fixes everything and has Riley come rushing back home. Her parents are just, they're worried. They're absolutely just, they're happy to see her back. And then we also get to see the moment where Riley just starts breaking down and crying, where she talks about how she misses home. She misses, being back in Minnesota where she had her friends, where they had their home, where they were just there. It just felt like it was hard to move on because she had so many great memories back there. And it's one of those moments that's so relatable because anybody who has gone through a big move, I can speak personally that it still was hard to move from Chicago, a place where I thought all my memories and all my life was going to be, to right here in Wisconsin, to where it's basically a reset button. It is one of the hardest things to go through because you remember so many positive things about your former home, and it's hard to move on from them. But eventually, you realize that as long as you have family with you, that you can definitely do it. As long as you have strong relationships with friends, you can make it through it. And again, it's one of those moments that really I have a hard time just keeping the tears, from flooding out of my eyes. It's a very well done movie, and the ending definitely finds a way to just make you feel like you're just sniffing onions all the way until the final end credits. Number 5, Lion King, Mufasa's death. You had to know this one was going to be on the list. This was absolutely, gosh, it's heart-wrenching to watch this. Even years from now, you still remember that first reaction when you saw that, where Mufasa, he saves Simba but gets killed by Scar. Simba's going down, he's looking for his dad, and he sees Mufasa's lifeless body just there. And he's thinking, maybe my dad's asleep, and you see him just saying, like, Dad, wake up, we gotta go home. It's just so hard to watch because you look at this and no little kid should have to endure that. Nobody should have to look and see this horrific moment. It's one of those things that really wrenches the heart, and it really brings out the waterworks because you realize that this is basically Simba's, first life experience, a major life experience. And through time, he still had to carry that because he thought that he was at fault. And of course, we all find out that it was Scar the whole time. So Simba was able to battle back, and he was able to conquer, but it was still one of those moments that definitely stands out. And Disney, again, does an absolutely amazing job of doing that. So, Disney. Number 4, The Walking Dead, the deaths of Glenn and Beth. Again, I know it's a twofer, but at the same time, it's very hard to just pick from these two. Because with Beth, you have one of the most innocent characters in the entire series. Of course, she did try to be a badass. She definitely did try to be a bad girl. But she was just so sweet and so soft-spoken. She had such a tender heart that it was hard for us to see her become that. She just was so nice. She always wanted to help everybody. And then, of course, when she dies off, it's absolutely devastating because all of that innocence that we thought we were going to have in the series is gone. It's poof, it's gone. And of course, Maggie just lost her father, lost her sister, and then of course a few seasons later loses her husband. This was one of those moments that really hit me hard because ever since I think it was episode 2, I want to say, of Walking Dead, I have been a fan of Glenn's. Glenn was my boy. Glenn was one of those guys who I just looked at and I thought to myself, you know what? I just want to live vicariously through you. He's a badass. He's smart. He gets the prettiest girl. He's also a flat-out nerd, but he's the nerd that I could be absolutely proud of. And of course, we get to the point where Negan gets into the picture, and Negan kills Glenn. And it's one of those moments where everybody just looks on, and some people that watch the comics, they knew it was coming. But for me, just an avid, loyal viewer, I'm just watching this and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, no. I'm losing, the one thing that kept me watching for so many seasons. And it just was hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have a hard time going back to watching Walking Dead, because of the fact that the was looking, who was like my favorite character, he's no longer there. So it was a very hard moment. It was something very hard to, watch, but also very hard to move on from. Man, God, why do they have to kill off Glenn? This sucks. Number 3, An American Tail. Fievel reunites with his family. So, American Tail, ironically enough, is about a family of Russian mice. Just thought I'd point that out quick. Fievel gets separated from his family, and he's basically trying to find them. They're thinking that he is gone, and so many moments, and they just tease it so bad every single time, where it's like, here he comes, he's going to find his family. He gets so close, and it's like, so close, it's so close, it's so close. It's like they're just a split hair away from each other, and you're just waiting for that moment for them to reunite, and it's just one of those moments where it's like, oh, why is this so hard? Why am I having such a hard time, And it's one of those things that just really tugs at it. That, of course, we reach the point where Fievel just basically gives up. He says, you know what? If they knew I was alive, then they would have found me. They would have found me. And of course, a few minutes later, well, in movie-wise, of course, I think it's like the next day or something like that. He hears a familiar violin, but he thinks nothing of it. But it wasn't until he heard his name being called by his papa that he realizes they know I'm here. They are looking for me. So he's calling out to them, and sorry, I'm getting a little choked up here. And of course, we hear his dad, call for him and call for him. Fievel calls for him, and then we just see that great embrace by the two of them. And then the family comes in, and they're just like, oh man, Fievel, you're alive, you're alive. It's just so well done. Again, why is it that always an animal movie just makes me so emotional? Why? Just why? And again, just really is one of those beautiful stories that is told. American Tail is an absolutely amazing movie, and definitely should be worth watching. Just feeling that roller coaster of emotions where it's just like, oh, they're getting close to finding each other. They're close. They just missed each other. Oh, they just missed each other. They just missed each other. Finally, they're reunited, and it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, finally, it's a happy ending. And you could be bawling. You could be just showing your emotions. It's absolutely amazing. Oh, that's such a good movie. Number 2, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will's dad episode. Or as I like to put it on my notes, Will's dad leaves. So I really fully appreciate The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, you know what, you haven't seen it. Unfortunately, I have not gotten a chance to see that many episodes of it, no. But this was one of those scenes that definitely hit me hard and really helped me see why this series was so well liked and why this series was so popular. Will's father comes back into the picture, and Will's excited. He's thinking that, everything's going to be great. He's going to have a family again. But unfortunately, his dad leaves again. And Will has this very, very passionate speech where he talks about how he didn't need him then, he doesn't need him now, and he won't need him in the future. I remember him talking about how he was going to, he's going to go to college on his own. He's going to get a great job on his own. He's going to marry a beautiful woman. They're going to have so many kids. And I think the line that he says is that, and I'm not going to need his help telling me how to raise my kids. And then he just breaks down in front of his uncle, and he just says, why doesn't my dad want me? And it's not until his uncle just holds him and hugs him, letting him know that Will is wanted. Will is loved. And it's such a great standout scene in the entire series. I know that there's other people that would probably disagree with me, but this is the one where I looked at it and thought to myself, you know what, this is one of the reasons why I think people loved it, was because they add that realism to it, but they also showed that Will's character could still be strong, but he can still have questions that are unanswered that made him human. It's just so well done. I absolutely thought this was amazing, and Will Smith's character definitely just hits it out of the park. It's absolutely amazing. So before we get into number one, I thought I'd actually mention a couple of honorable mentions here. One honorable mention, Scrubs. Scrubs definitely is one of those series that is very more comedy based, but it also brings in a lot of realistic moments as well as a lot of emotional moments where you could be watching a patient for like 7 episodes, and then it's not until maybe episode 8 that unfortunately that long patient passes on, or you could be dealing with one patient you only see in one episode, and they still find a way to just hit you hard right here. I just remember so many moments where I was laughing, I was having a good time, but then they brought in the realism to it, and it's very well done how they do it. I think that Scrubs is definitely underappreciated and definitely deserves a spot on any list when it comes to emotional moments. And let's face it, I think that Brendan Fraser's character of Jordan's brother, he was very well liked, and having him gone just made it that much more tough. Next runner-up would be I Can Only Imagine. I dare you guys to watch this entire movie and not cry within the last, I think it was 30 minutes. This is one of those movies that definitely really gives justice to the song I Can Only Imagine, and really shows why it was created, how the created this song that people will ask each other, what I Can Only Imagine what it's going to be like final days, because of the fact that he had to, see the final days of his dad, and for a long time his dad was never that supportive. Final days, he was very supportive. He tried to make amends for what he did wrong, and it was, again, a very well done movie, probably one of the best of this year. And last 30 minutes, when you see his father dying, you go from hating the man to feeling sorry for him, and again, tears swelling up, going down your face, waterworks hit. It's just so well done. Final honorable mention is Snow White's death. Basically, we could say that this is the original heart-wrenching moment that Disney definitely really just hit home with, because all the dwarves thought that Snow White was gone. They had basically made a funeral, and you see every single one of them getting emotional, and they're crying. And even Grumpy, who a lot of people looked at and they thought, well, I don't think anybody really, anybody really thinks that, Grumpy likes Snow White. But you see that moment and you realize that Grumpy did indeed care for her, maybe even loved her. It was so hard to watch that it adds too much realism, but also the right amount of emotions in there. Alright, guys. Number one. This is indeed my most emotional moment on TV as well as films. It is a film. The last 10 minutes of Homeward Bound, the amazing journey. This movie is absolutely amazing. There is very little, what's the phrase I'm looking for? You don't see, like, with the animals, they have those, CGI animated mouths where they're talking. No. You're basically hearing their voices, coming out of of their heads, basically. I mean, Michael J. Fox playing the role of Chance, Sally Fields playing the role of Sassy, and the late, great Wisconsin's own Don Amici voicing Shadow, who really just hit it home with this movie. Oh my gosh. If you ever want to see a movie that will definitely make you cry every single time, this is that movie. So basically, Shadow, Chance, and Sassy, they're going off into the wilderness and they're trying to find their owners, and they get so close. Shadow is being just basically this strong and independent person. He has the spirit, he has the will, he is absolutely just making it so that they can do it. And then unfortunately an incident happened in which Shadow gets injured, and his spirit was more than willing, but his body was just not able to do it. It was one of those things where it just was hard to see somebody who you looked at and saw him go from just being very strong-willed to just feeling like he was second rate. Not even second rate, like he was feeling less than absolute. He was feeling less than he ever did before. And it's so hard to see that scene. And, Chance is trying so hard to basically just say, you pushed me this far, I'll push you the rest if I have to. And just hearing Shadow just say the phrase, you think it's easy for me? I'm too old. Where, again, it's so hard to listen to that, where you're just saying he was the leader. He's the one who's basically trying to motivate everybody to get to that point. And then we get into the next scene, which makes the waterworks go even more. This is, again, these last 10 minutes are very hard for me, and I'm still getting kind of choked up about this, so I do apologize if I lose myself a little bit. We see, Chance comes back, everybody's happy. Sassy comes back, everybody's happy. And then Peter, Shadow's owner, just looks in the distance. He's hoping to see Shadow. And Chance and Sassy, they're just completely silent, which makes this scene so powerful. And Peter even said, it was too far. He was just too old. It's just too far. And it's just one of those moments where you feel devastated until you see Shadow climbing up from the hills. And just hearing that moment where Shadow and Peter, they call each other's names, and then they just rush to each other, they embrace each other, they're just absolutely, they're happy that, they're reunited. It's one of those feelings where you go from genuine tears of sadness to tears of joy, because it throws just this major curveball where you think Shadow's not going to make it, but he again finds that will, he finds that spirit to make it back to his owner. And it's one of those things that you admire and you love about it. And it's just a very well done movie. And I think what also makes it very, very powerful is the soundtrack. If you listen to the music, it's very hard to just not love how the music, it fit everything perfectly. So with that being said, guys, and with tears swelling down my eyes, this has been my top 10 plus emotional moments in TV and films. Thank you so much for joining me here. Next week will be another great show. And just remember, you guys, it's okay to show your emotions. It doesn't make you less of a person. It makes you more of a human. For the Game Changer, I've been Nate the Effing Great. Talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.